Welcome to the Western Ultimate League's Open Side, a series of roundtable discussions featuring players and coaches from the WUL. I'm your host, Megan Tormey, and this episode, a special Mother's Day edition, we are joined to talk about Motherhood and Ultimate by Emily Smith-Wilson, also known as Smitty from the Utah Wild, Andrea Duran, also known as Dre, assistant coach to the San Diego Superbloom, and Lindsey Doyle, aka Z, from the Arizona Sidewinders. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So there are so many things in our lives that we use to identify ourselves, but few things as all-consuming as motherhood. So in honor of the fact that you were all people before you were moms, let's talk a little bit about your athletic careers and pursuits prior to having children. And Smitty, I'll start with you. You were heavily involved in basketball for a large portion of your life. Athletics as a whole has always been important to you. You have your undergraduate degree in exercise physiology with an emphasis on coaching. You're currently a teacher trainer in Pilates. Can you tell us a little bit about how athletics and the motivation to stay in shape has always been a central value in your life?
Yes. So I don't know if my emphasis necessarily is in staying in shape, and I try to emphasize that with my clients as well as anybody that I come across in my teaching. It's more about feeling good to me, and so especially when, I guess, in the field of, or in the occupation of Pilates, vanity tends to come in play, and I always just try and emphasize, like, it's more important that you feel good and to listen to your body. And so following that, I definitely, throughout basketball and Frisbee and my Pilates career and anything that I've ever done, essentially I do it because it feels good and it's fun.
Lindsey, you also have a really intense background in a different sport than Ultimate. You were big into track and field, and you did pole vaulting. Tell us a little bit about your love for the track and field.
Sure. I absolutely loved the individual but team sports, like track, like cross country, where you could really rely on yourself to put in as much as you could into your training, and it was on you to perform or not. I really gravitated towards the pole vault. My friends refer to me as an adrenaline junkie, and pole vault is pretty adrenaline filled. It requires so much of yourself to be put into every single jump, and it's been really interesting to see how trying to find that inner fire to pump yourself up, to give 1,000% every time you go to jump or take the field. It's been really fun to see that transfer over, learning how to light that own fire within my belly to make sure that every time I go to do something, I do it 1,000%. It's been really neat to see how many times in my life I've needed to call on that when it's, universe point and it's the end of the tournament, we're absolutely exhausted, or whatever the situation is where you got to really dig deep. That's been really fun, and there's a feeling that you get when you pole vault. I like to say that it's the closest to flying you get under your own power that you create, and you have this moment of just elation in the air when you clear the bar, and it kind of, I found a familiarity with catching that score or having that perfect huck in Ultimate as well. So.
But being physical is also a part of your job. You're a trainer. You have also coached pole vaulting. What does it mean to you, and what has driven you to help others reach higher levels of athletic capacity?
Yeah, I absolutely love coaching. As much as I loved to vault, I almost love coaching even more, because every time I get a new batch of kids, I get to relive all of those moments throughout my career, watching them get them as well. Every time they bend the pole for the first time, every time they get a new PR, and I see their eyes just light up with this amazing realization of what that feels like. And also, you can see in so many of them that moment of, I want to do that again because that was really cool. And so I kind of get to relive my own kind of career in doing that, in doing those moments. I get to give that gift to these other batch of kids, and I get to watch them do it. And so not only coaching pole vault, but also doing the sports performance training that I do, I get to watch these kids and sometimes adults reach their goals and overcome obstacles and just find that moment where it's just, they're just so excited to reach a new goal or achieve a new level. And that's been the most fun for me.
Dre, you have a slightly different background in athletics in that you started playing ultimate earlier than a lot of people in this sport tend to. You started playing in 10th grade. It was just a fun after-school activity that people did on Fridays. You started this as a sophomore in high school, and the program became more organized as you became a more dedicated player. Talk a little bit about that early evolution in your ultimate career.
Sure. So I started playing ultimate, like you said, on Friday afternoons. It was just a pickup game, open game, and we were a handful of women playing at that point, mostly guys. And we started to get more organized as one of the seniors started playing in the local adult league. We had a teacher that had played in college, and so he was able to kind of be our sponsor and coach us a bit. And we evolved from 10th grade, kind of just getting started. 11th grade, we actually started playing in youth tournaments, and we went to youth nationals at that point. And so we just kept developing. Now the program there at my high school has, A, B, C teams for men and women that, it's really blossomed over the period since I graduated. But it was fun to be part of that initial beginning for the high school.
And shortly into your ultimate career, you were diagnosed with a heart condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. How did that change your relationship with the sport of ultimate and also with athletics in general?
Yeah, I got that diagnosis after my freshman year of college, and I had to really think about how, could I continue to play, and how would I do that, and what would ultimate be in my life. And so I made some adjustments to how I played. All of us do a lot of things on the field regardless of our position, but the first step, at least at that point, was I switched from being a cutter to being a handler so that I could be slightly less involved, and at least into like full field constant running. And so I really think that I learned how to, what I like to say is play more efficiently. I really try to think about when do I need to use my energy and have those bursts to make a difference, and when is, say, on defense, when is the person I'm guarding not a threat, and so I can back off a little bit and really strategize that way about how I use my body and when I'm playing very intensely. And so adjustments like that. I also got a defibrillator for the sideline in case I did go into cardiac arrest. And so I've continued to monitor my health and make adjustments to how I play so that I could continue to play. However, it did, in a lot of ways, put ultimate into perspective for me. I knew from the beginning that I would need to know that there are going to be other things in life. I may have to quit at any time. And so having my identity be fully ultimate based was something I deviated from at that early phase of understanding that ultimate was really important and I loved it, but I also needed to have other parts of my life be a big part of me as well.
Smitty, in some of your early ultimate memories, your early ultimate moments when you were just getting into the sport and falling in love with it, what was it about the sport that made you realize you had found something really special that you loved?
I think for me, it took the edge off of the commitment of basketball and the rigidity and kind of the control that I felt. Like that the coaches controlled me, or I was required to be at shoot-arounds or lifting in the gym or spending my lunch periods shooting free throws. And so for ultimate, when I started playing, I was able to tap into the high intensity of the sport and still like fulfill my desire for a high level of play. But then there was like the fun aspect of it, and people were lighthearted on the sidelines. And I mean, as far as I was concerned, like we would get in trouble for messing around during basketball. But then on the sidelines for ultimate, like it's kind of obligatory that you play games, like ridiculous games, on the sideline. And so it kind of fulfilled both sides of it for me, the intensity as well as the fun that was being had at halftime, post tournament, after, between Saturday and Sunday.
And Lindsey, you went from sports where, obviously you were very technical trained to be able to pole vault, very committed to be doing, track where you do rely on yourself. What was it about ultimate that drew you into this sphere and made you want to focus your energies and your talents on this sport?
I think it was really similar to what Smitty said. It was a really warm, welcoming, fun atmosphere. I really was drawn to the spirit of the game aspect. You would find highly, highly competitive athletes who were still really great sports, and sportsmanship was so important. And I loved that aspect where, it's like you want to win at all costs, but at all costs that are fair. And I loved that. I really did. And anytime I was approaching a pickup game when I was just starting out, or a group of people playing, and I was like, I'm not really sure. They were always like, come on, come play, we'll teach you. And it's been fun to now be on the other side and see the beginners showing up at pickup games and being like, come on, I'll show you, it's fine. So I really love that. Everyone was welcome, and it really kind of felt like the weirder you were, the more you fit in, which was a neat aspect as well. And like Smitty said, the fun games, it was like we work really hard on the field, but we also play really hard on the sidelines, and that was really appealing to me.
Dre, there must be something about this sport for you to be willing to endure the risk that you do to play. And what was that factor for you that made you decide that you were going to take these precautions, you were going to make these adjustments so that you could continue to participate in this sport?
Yeah, I think the joke answer is I hate going for runs, so I need a sport to get me to actually move and exercise. I think, but the real answer is the community, the people, the friendships, and also just the feeling of being part of something kind of bigger than yourself, of having that team goal and working towards something and having those moments of achieving it together, and both on and off the field, just like everyone else has said, the off the field fun is just as important as the on the field highs of winning and the lows of losing that make those highs that much more special.
Now, all three of you have enjoyed very varied and illustrious ultimate careers, but I want to talk about the time when you became pregnant and how that changed things for you. And Smitty, I want to start with you because I know your pregnancy was unexpected and you had been playing some of the best ultimate of your life up at that point. And talk us through some of the emotions that you were experiencing, especially in relation to, your athletic pursuits and the goals that you had in mind for ultimate at the time.
Yeah, so I was just I think I had just returned from Worlds in Prague, Czech Republic. And I felt like I had hit a point, like I was stronger than I had ever been in my life, coming off of the high of Worlds, and kind of looking ahead at potentially I think at that point they were opening it up for trying out for the national teams. I don't know that they had tryouts prior to that. And so it was like, oh, maybe I could try out. Am I good enough for that? And then I got pregnant and it was like a quick downhill, like, oh my God, this is it. Like any athletes that I had in my life as role models never really played after pregnancy at a high level. And so I definitely thought at some point, like, this is the end. And then I kind of had like a moment with myself, and it's like, you got to snap out of this. She's just going to come along with you. And that's kind of like, it was like, if I can't afford a baby carrier, I'm going to duct tape her to my body and she's going with me wherever I'm going. Like, this is not the end of the world for me. It's not the end of anything, except for it's just it'll be like a different period in my life. But I definitely like felt like the sad puppy looking out the window when like runners would run by, and it's like, oh, like, dang, I can't do any of this right now. But yeah, I think it was a mindset and a shift for me from, going from a high to a low. And then it's like, all right, I can't stay low for forever. Like there's definitely life after this.
Z, you had, as you described, an easy pregnancy, but I'm curious, with your background in athletics, what expectations did you have going in about what you would or wouldn't be able to do after you had Leah? And what was it like during your pregnancy, training and trying to keep yourself as comfortable as possible?
I think we all have an idea of what being pregnant and having a baby will be like. And I'd been keeping myself in such good shape for so long that when I did get pregnant, I decided to give my body a break and the rest that I thought it needed. And what I discovered was that the mental aspect was harder. I admittedly had a very easy pregnancy. I got incredibly lucky. But I realized that working out and playing ultimate took care of my mental health for me. It made staying happy very easy. That was my outlet. And so the feeling of, the fear of missing out on what's going on around you and from the sidelines during leagues and club practices and things was really, really hard. I've identified as an athlete for so long that to not have that aspect in my life at that moment felt kind of like a loss. Like I was lost. Like, well, who am I if I'm not the athletic one out there? And so being pregnant made me kind of take a look at myself and go, okay, well, what other parts are there to me and to my personality right now? And so I did some prenatal yoga, and there's plenty of strength exercises that you can do while you're pregnant. I trained many pregnant women through my career. And so I did some of those, which helped to kind of stabilize that mental health piece. But it doesn't fill the gap that high level activity and high level athletics left. And so I was even more motivated and driven to come back afterwards. And the expectations I had, I've seen so many women have so many different experiences that I tried to keep an open mind and not set expectations for myself. Some women will play a month after giving birth, and other women, it takes a year or longer to get back to where they were. And so I didn't want to set an unrealistic expectation and then be disappointed. And so I had to switch from being an athlete who always sets very concrete goals. I had to become more forgiving of myself and just let my body do what it needed to do. I admittedly probably took longer than some. I was more on the longer end to rebound. My delivery was a lot tougher, and so there was a lot more healing that needed to happen. And so yeah, that was the biggest thing, is just learning how to give myself some grace and some space to come back when my body was ready and not when my mind wanted it to be ready.
Dre, you played early in your first pregnancy and then stopped. Talk to us a little bit about what made you make the decision to stop playing and what you did through both of your pregnancies just to keep yourself feeling well.
Yeah, my first pregnancy, I kept playing up until about 3 months in when I was at layout, actually. And having brunch before starting a late game, and I actually fainted in waiting to have brunch. And so I think I was just dehydrated and hungry, hadn't eaten for however long since the night before. So it wasn't ultimately a big deal as far as my health, but it was a moment of kind of pause to kind of say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be pushing myself quite so hard. Maybe I am pregnant and should take it easy a little bit. So at that point with my first pregnancy, I did stop playing ultimate. With my second pregnancy, it was closer to 5 months or so when I stopped playing. And that one was much more about kind of safety and thinking about the comfort of both my husband and other players who I don't want them to have to play timidly or be uncomfortable having somebody on the field that is pregnant. And I have talked to folks where it's like, I don't want to lay out into you. I don't want to bump you. And it's like, okay, I need to get off the field so we can just play Ultimate together.
One of the craziest things about childbirth is that it is an absolutely momentous event, and you cannot plan for it at all. As much as you think about what you want, ideally, what happens. And so, Smitty, I'd love to talk with you first about your very idyllic birth experience and what it was like to have Aaliyah come into the world.
So yeah, similar to the others, I stopped running at about 2.5 or 3 months. And then just focused a lot, like accepting that I am going to birth a child. And so I was actually living in Jamaica, West Indies at the time. And I flew back to Montana to be with my mom. And so I was staying at her house for a short period of time. I flew in like July, and Aaliyah was born August 15th. And her father was also supposed to fly in, or he did fly in, but there's like the timing of it. Like I didn't want to induce, but I did want him to be there for the birth. And I was like, well, kind of just wait and see what happens. I also met my midwife once I arrived in Montana, the lady that was going to help me go through with the birth. And I had like done some classes online, tried to figure out exactly like how I was going to mesh with this midwife. And the first time I met her, I was like, hey, do you need me to fill out a birth plan, or like what is the plan? And she said, the plan is that you're going to trust me. I was like, okay. And I kind of realized in that moment that just kind of based on everything that I had read, as well as friends sharing their birthing stories, that everything is very different, especially per person. And then that like a mother could give birth one way one time, and the next time they give birth, it's just the complete opposite. And so I kind of just let go of any sort of expectations and really focused on like opening and releasing and letting go of any sort of control or having any sort of idea about how I wanted the birth to go. And so a couple of days before her due date, I started having contractions that I could feel. The midwife had told me at some point that I was having contractions, but I couldn't feel any of them. I think that I was walking around like 3 or 4 centimeters dilated for a couple of days. I remember going to the river and thinking, like, if I go into labor here, they're gonna have to float me down the river back to the truck. Like, what am I doing here? But so a couple of days before her due date, I started having like pretty serious contractions where I was like, oh, like stuff is definitely happening. And so I kind of went about my morning and then took a nap. And just after 4 o'clock, I remember waking up, like kind of sitting up in bed to a contraction. And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to go. And so we drove over to the birthing center, and my midwife was like, you all can watch shows, you can do whatever you'd like. And then she watched me go through a contraction. She was like, I'm just going to get everything ready. And so we probably got to the birthing center around 5:15. And I had mentioned to her that I was interested in having a water birth, but I really love the water and I feel comfortable in the water. And so she was like, if you want to relax, you can get in the tub, it'll be warm. And then at that point, I think I was in active labor, and kind of just playing mind games. To me, it felt like I was running EMOMs, like every minute on the minute. You just like run, and then when your distance is up, then you can rest. But so the contractions or the waves just like kind of came at me. I was like, this is just like running, 400 EMOMs. And so I remember being like, well, maybe I should ask for some sort of, like, I was feeling a lot of discomfort, and thinking like maybe I should ask for some sort of like, I need to tell them that like I'm not feeling well. And then I was like, no, started kind of just playing the mind games of like whatever we do when we run hard track workouts or when we're doing something that we don't really love. And then next thing I know, they were talking about 9/11, and I was like, why are they talking about 9/11? Like, I am having a child right now. And the midwife said, like, reach down, she's on your chest, you can feel her. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even realize that I had given birth. I mean, I knew that I was having a child, but I didn't realize that like we had reached the end of the process. And so I worked on like getting my eyes open, and that was kind of it. Like, it was quick and easy. I had an easy pregnancy. Luckily, I had an easy birth. And yeah, it was just one of the most surreal moments of my life. I remember thinking like, if everybody got to experience this, maybe the world would be a little bit different.
That is beautiful. And of course, Aaliyah being born at 9/11, which is why they were mentioning that particular number. And again, we've said it already. You just can't plan for childbirth. Everyone has a very different experience. Z, I'd love for you to share your experience. By contrast, you described it as traumatic, justifiably so. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your experience and emotions bringing Leah into the world.
Sure. Yeah, I would say it was kind of traumatic. So my daughter was very comfortable where she was and had no interest in coming out. I was 9 days overdue, and they said, all right, you've got a couple more days and then we're going to induce you. And so I went in to have my fluid levels checked at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. And, I hadn't showered, I hadn't eaten, anything like that. I was run in, let's get this done. They're going to induce me on Sunday. Okay, fine. And they said, your fluid levels are too low. You're going to stay. And so it was during the lunar eclipse a few years ago, 3.5 years ago. And the labor and delivery triage was absolutely bustling. There were people coming in, women coming in active labor constantly the whole time I was there. And I was in no distress. I wasn't in labor. I was just chilling in a bed, hearing all these women coming through, in the sounds of, in the throes of labor, and getting whisked through and up to a room. So I sat there listening to all these women come and go for about 8 hours. My mom brought food and we played cards, and it was pretty relaxed. I'm like, well, this is a great start. So I finally got a room, and they said they were going to induce me, and it was not how I imagined it going. It wasn't how I wanted it to go or pictured it going, but being on Pitocin, which is what they used to induce me, makes contractions come very hard, very rapid, without a lot of space in between. I wanted to labor naturally, and so I did that until about 6 centimeters, give or take, which was really hard, and then decided to go ahead with the epidural. So I was already feeling like my body wasn't doing what it was supposed to do because I hadn't gone into labor naturally. And then I felt like I had failed again because I couldn't labor naturally the way I had wanted to. And so I got the epidural. My husband is a doctor, and they said I fell under what they call the doctor's curse because the first epidural accidentally got pulled out by the anesthesiologist. So in the throes of my contractions, I had to get stuck a second time to get the epidural. So that was 2 pokes, which was hard to sit still for. And then they moved me later and it pulled out again. So I had to have a 3rd stick. And my body tends to process medications very, very quickly, like insanely fast, 2 or 3 times faster than normal. So my epidurals, they kept wearing off and they had to keep calling the anesthesiologist to come back and top me off and add more. And it was really frustrating because every time I felt like I sort of kind of got into a groove, the epidural would wear off and then I'd be in a lot of pain again. And so again, I felt like my body wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. And it was different from every difficult experience. Everything that I've done has trained me to bear down, grit my teeth, get fired up, get adrenaline going to get through whatever the tough thing is that I was facing. And with delivery, with pregnancy, like you can't do that. Adrenaline counteracts all of the good hormones and the good body chemicals that are going through you. And so when you amp up the adrenaline, it reduces the oxytocin levels and the happy hormone that is supposed to be helping you through this. And so I had to figure out how to get through it without that. And it was very tough. And then after the 5th time they had to top off my epidural, the doctors came in and said, I don't think you can do this. You're too tired. This was now Saturday evening, middle of the night. And we're trying to push. And they said, I don't think you're strong enough. And you want to make me do something? Tell me I can't do it. And so I argued with the doctor and said, no, I can do this. And he said, we're gonna leave it up to the baby. We'll call the anesthesiologist. Because I said, if you'll top me off, because my epidural had worn off at that crucial moment, of course. And so I said, if you get the anesthesiologist up here and to top me off, I know I can do this. And so he said, well, we'll call him, but if your baby's heart rate changes at all, we're going to the OR and there's going to be no discussion. It'll be my call at that point. So I just kind of sent a little message to my baby, which we were surprised. We didn't know if it was a boy or girl, but I just said, you better hang in there, kiddo, because I don't want to go to the OR. And she was a rock star. Her heart rate didn't dip a single time. She was totally rock solid from start to finish. And so the anesthesiologist got there and he topped me off. And the doctor said, okay, we're going to do an epidural. And he picked up the an episiotomy. He picked up the scissors and I said, no, I don't want that. He goes, you don't have a choice. And he gave me an episiotomy. And then I pushed and he gave me a double episiotomy. And I pushed some more and he grabbed a vacuum. And so I had a vacuum assisted birth. She was pretty stuck. And she came out a little bit blue. And so they immediately took her to the incubator or took her over to where I don't really know. I wasn't really present. I was kind of out of my mind at this moment, but they whisked her away. And I remember that feeling of like, wait a minute, something else is supposed to happen. I'm supposed to get her. You're supposed to give her to me. And they took her, and my husband, I just remember telling him, you go with the baby. And he went with her. And so like he didn't get to cut the cord, and I didn't get that moment right after where they hand her to you. And again, I felt like I hadn't done it right, and it was a very different experience than you expect. And everything turned out great. She's amazing and wonderful. And yes, she came out a little bit blue, but she pinked up right away, and she's phenomenal, and she's brilliant and amazing. But without all of the magic moments that you expect to have, there's this underlying feeling of like, well, that I got cheated out of something. And so with the traumatic birth, there was a lot of nerve damage and a lot of healing that had to happen. At one point, the nurse helped me to get up to use the restroom, and she dropped me on the toilet, which did not go well for either of us, and I almost passed out. So there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of healing that had to happen. And my daughter, who I absolutely love, and she's this amazing miracle, was kind of another thing I had to deal with. at the beginning. And people don't talk about that as much, and they don't talk about how things might not go the way you think. And it took me probably a good 4 to 8 weeks to really bond with her to the level that I had expected to have an instantaneous bond. That moment when they put them on your chest and you're like, I'm so in love with this being. It took time for me, which people don't talk about, and it makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel like a bad mom. It makes you question, should I even have had a baby? Am I ever going to reach that point? And all of those questions and those doubts creep in. And thankfully, my parents were there. They were in town from out of state. So they were there to support my husband and I. My husband is the most amazing partner I could have ever asked for, and supported me in ways that I didn't even know I needed. And he was just incrediable. And so we made it through it. And obviously I bonded with my daughter, and I am so amazed by her every single day. But yeah, it's something that they don't talk about much. And so I try to be open about everything that I went through, so that my friends, who I am one of the first in our group to have kids, so when my friends get pregnant and go through this, if it's not the way they expect, they know that it was the same way for me, and they can talk to me about it, and I can kind of help them through that if necessary, because to feel like a failure at this thing that some would argue our bodies were made to do can really get you sometimes. So yeah, so in answer to your question, yes, I had a very traumatic birth, a lot of healing that had to happen afterwards, and some lasting effects mentally and physically, but you make it through, and you do what you have to do to get back to the things that you love.
And I think you said it really well when you said it's under discussed that this can happen, that it can be a really stressful time, and that your birth plan, if you have one, can be literally thrown out the window completely against your will, and that's just what happens. Dre, I know you have 2 children, Sloan and Kyra, and you had to deal with both labors with your heart condition, and so it was just something that you had to bear in mind as you had both children. And Kyra, your youngest, was born at the beginning of the pandemic, April 7th, 2020. So tell us a little bit about both of your labors, and also the added stress and discomfort of having to labor with a mask on and not exactly know what's going on outside in the world.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go chronologically. My first daughter, Sloan, was born, I guess, to me, it seemed like a very ideal way, in that because of my heart, my doctor really didn't want me to exert myself through the whole labor process. So the birth plan was for me to do as little as possible. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. Let's not do much in labor. So the plan was to have me get an epidural as soon as the contractions were to the point of me feeling pain and having to breathe through it, and kind of not just be able to hang out through the contractions. And so I was to get an epidural and vacuum assist if needed, to make sure that I really did minimal pushing. And she was at 41 weeks. The plan was to have an induction, but my water broke at 40 weeks and 6 days. So she was born at 41 weeks, but my body decided it was time on its own. So we basically followed that birth plan, and I was really lucky that we were able to do that. Labor progressed after my water broke, and we were at the hospital, and I got the epidural, and altered between taking naps and chatting with my husband. And then by the next morning, they're like, "Oh, looks like you're ready to go. We'll do this now." And 3-5 pushes, and then the vacuum assist, and she was out. So it was really felt pretty straightforward in that sense with my daughter Sloan. The plan for Kyra was the same. It was supposed to be, again, minimal effort on my part, since they were worried about my heart. And since it was definitely something, I guess I would say the athlete in me was like, no, I could do this. I'm still in shape, kind of, maybe. I could push some, but obviously I've got to keep my my heart wasn't more important than my like ego in trying to wanting to push. But it turned out I actually accidentally got that opportunity with Kyra. I was induced, and I got the epidural placed after waiting around all day for the induction to get going. I was around 4 centimeters when the epidural got placed, and they wanted to have the epidural be at around like half the dosage because they wanted to make sure it was very gradual to monitor my heart's reaction to having the medication. And so it was anticipated it would take a while, and it had already taken a while for me to even get to 4 centimeters and everything. So that it was kind of, the plan was it's going to be a long night kind of thing. But within about a half hour, I was like, I still feel this. This is getting intense. I'm not supposed to feel things. What's going on? So I'm like pressing the little epidural button, trying to get more in me. And I'm like, I'm still feeling this. What's going on? And so I called the nurse back in. I'm like, is something wrong? And at that point, they examine me. They say, oh, you're at 10 centimeters. It's time to go. We're starting to push right now. And so I pushed for probably, I'm going to guess 15 minutes. It's hard to tell time when you're in the middle of labor. But yeah, I pushed. I was feeling the contractions, in the unplanned way since the epidural hadn't taken effect at that point. And so I was able to push my daughter Kyra out in that way. And I went from 4 centimeters to a baby in about 45 minutes unexpectedly. And thankfully, everybody was happy and healthy and survived and all of those things. I think the main difference for me with this time around is both of them I ended up having second-degree tears. And with Kyra's birth, because I didn't have the epidural in place, I got to feel those stitches as they were being put in afterward. And so that was something where I did get to have my daughters on my chest, and with Kyra laying there, it was kind of like, would you hurry up and finish so I can enjoy this? And so we got there eventually, but I still, thankfully I had those fairly straightforward births, and the week or so, the healing time after, I would say, was more painful than the actual labor, because I was lucky with those deliveries.
I think one of the surprising things for me in my first delivery, I have 2 children, was just the postpartum period and the recovery process. Being in shape prior to my firstborn, I just assumed that the recovery process would be quick and I'd feel great fairly quickly. But I realized that it's definitely a longer road and more nuanced and complex than I had any idea going into it. Z, obviously you had a lot to recover from, and I'm curious if you can share kind of your road to recovery after you had Leah.
Sure. My road to recovery was a long one. She was born in August, and I played the following May. And I definitely was not where I wanted to be or where I had hoped to be. I did go to a pelvic floor physical therapist, which I had never heard of until after she was already born. And I wish I had known about them sooner. And I can't recommend them enough. After Leah was born, I had a lot of bladder issues and nerve damage that caused problems while playing, and had to find creative solutions for that. And after going to see a pelvic floor physical therapist, it got so much better. My life got so much easier in terms of any sort of workouts or any strenuous activity. And so I would say, if there's something I can get out there, it's that things don't always go as planned, but there are people there to help you. And getting back in shape was rough. My team was incredibly supportive. Nobody pointed out that I wasn't nearly as fast as I used to be or able to keep up the way I used to be. And that kind of made me keep going and get through those workouts. And the following year I came back feeling pretty good. But that healing process it's tough, and you have to realize the changes that your body goes through, the ligaments that get stretchy to allow a baby to come out. They're not the only ones affected by the hormones that cause that to happen. So you have to be careful with yourself and make sure you listen to your body as you get back in shape, and take it one day and one workout at a time.
And Smitty, you also, as you explained, were committed to being able to play again. What was your initial postpartum period like, and what were your thoughts as you started to get back into shape to a point where you could be athletic again and play ultimate again?
I feel really fortunate that I had the nurse that I did. I actually met her as I think I had already had the baby. I hadn't met her. It was like a nurse that the midwife had called in, and she said she was going to. I really, like, when I say I didn't have a plan, like, I feel like I was along for the ride. And so I was like trying to shake the nurse's hand as she was helping me go to like make my way to the bathroom. And then I remember her bathing me, and she was like, "I'm going to take care of you." I was like, "Okay, my name is Emily." And she's like, "I've got you." And one of the things that she said to me was that you're not going to exert yourself. And I was like, okay, like, this lady doesn't know me. I do my own thing. And so we slept at night, and then the next morning we were leaving, and it had actually snowed that night. It was August 15th, and it snowed where we were at. I guess babies come during storms. And so I went to open the door, and the nurse grabbed my wrist, and she said, "I told you you're not going to exert yourself." And I was like, "I can't open the door?" She was like, "Don't put any pressure anywhere. Promise me for 3 weeks, you're going to let your body heal." I was like, okay. And I started like really thinking about it, and thinking about all of my Pilates training. I had been prenatal, postpartum trained, because I had a lot of clients who I had taken through their pregnancies. And the more I thought about it, I was like, wow, I need to go back to like pre-foundational Pilates. And so for 3 weeks, I kind of just like worked on like figuring out what being a mom was and what it meant for Aaliyah and I. And then I remember laying on the floor and starting to like engage my lower abdominals and try and pull my abdominals like off of the floor, just laying down with my head down, legs down. And it was like this feeling of like my organs kind of laying out onto the floor. And I was like, oh my God, I can't blow my nose. I can't, like, I don't know how I'm sneezing. I'm just like, not really, just losing everything. And so I took the 3 weeks that the nurse had asked, and then I was actually on a team. I had a roster spot for that, like September or something. And I decided that I would go for a run, but I had come from sea level up to about 5,300 feet. And my mom asked me, like, how did your run go? And in all honesty, it was like a walk. And then I tried to jog for like 10 seconds, and I was like, I'm dying. And I just realized at that point that for the long run, it didn't behoove me to even try to do anything except for continue to figure out what it is to be a mom. And just listening to my body, and you know, I had peer pressure that like, oh, you can come and handle and you'll be fine. And it was like, no, you all don't understand what I just went through. And I definitely don't view my birth as traumatic. But I acknowledge that it is traumatizing to the body. Just the action of like birth in and of itself is traumatizing. And so I started playing again the following year, I think in like July. And I still, I remember people saying like, oh, she's back. And I was like, I don't feel like, I just feel like a wreck. Like I know that I'm moving on the field and somehow I think people are just actually throwing the disc at me and I'm getting D's. Like I don't know how anything is working. But I definitely just listen to my body and kind of like what Lindsey said, just there are people out there that can help you. And luckily, I knew enough of kind of building back the body to avoid a lot of things, any sort of prolapses. I was ultra aware of those types of things. But I also at the same time just listen. And if anything didn't feel comfortable, I stopped it at that moment. I didn't try to push through anything. And I think that that really is what got me back to being healthy. But I don't think that I really, until Aaliyah was probably five years post birth, I started feeling like, oh, I think I'm back.
Dre, what about you? That initial postpartum period, what changes did you experience and what did you think that meant in terms of your ability to be athletic again?
The first couple weeks, I mostly just wanted to be able to sit straight again. I've spent a lot of time tilted one way or another, so I didn't have direct pressure on my crotch. So once I got past that, then I'd say my next biggest issue was having back pain and getting my core strong enough again to not have pain. And I actually got another resource was I went to a Mommy and Me, I guess not yoga, like workout, Mommy and Me class. And where we used our babies as our weight. And we're like, okay, that's 10 pounds. We'll do some exercises. And there the instructor was able to give personal like little checkups and noted that I had diastasis recti. It's not severe, but enough that it was probably contributing to my core issues and my back pain. And so I did end up going to do some physical therapy to get my strength back so that I could just function at home, lifting a baby in and out of a crib. How do I do that with proper form? And that helped me get strength enough back to start playing Ultimate again. I have not played at the highest levels since I've given birth, but I've been playing pickup and adult leagues here and like practice player type club practices and just playing wherever I can, going to fun tournaments. So I still love playing, but I haven't pushed myself to get back to my peak condition when I was playing club every year and everything. And I think some of that's, I would say there's several factors of time with kids. There's still my management of my heart condition and how much can I push myself versus making sure I'm taking care of my heart. And my body, I think, would be capable of being in shape again if I was able to devote time to doing it, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, and I do want to talk a little more specifically about each of yours decision to return to Ultimate in some capacity. Dre, as you said, you haven't played at the club level, but you are involved in coaching. Walk us through that transition after you had Sloan, when you decided you were going to try coaching as you return to Ultimate.
Yeah, I think it was probably more reactive than proactive in a lot of ways. Once Sloan started to get a little bit older, kind of past that first year of blur, I wanted to be involved with Ultimate. And so I was the first assistant coach for Wildfire here in San Diego. And after that year, the head coach stepped away. And during the off season, the captains approached me about being the head coach and took some time to think about it because I was at the point where I was like, well, I could play again. Maybe this is a season where like, if I'm able to put the time into coaching, then I should be able to put the time into playing and kind of debating a lot of different things going on in life. And in the end, I said, no, let's try coaching. Let's commit to wildfire in that way and try something new, learn how to do something new. Particularly kind of the same idea of, I know with my heart that I need to be creative about ways for me to participate in ultimate. And so taking this opportunity to be a coach and see where that would lead as a new avenue, but still participating, given that lots of life would make it hard to be fully dedicated the way I was before.
Smitty, I know you already mentioned that during your pregnancy, you had made the decision that you were still going to be active, even if you had to duct tape your child to your chest. Was there any point during the postpartum period that you thought maybe you weren't going to be able to get back to the place you wanted to be? I know you mentioned it took about 5 years before you felt you were back. Looking retrospectively at those 5 years, like I said, is there any point that you were like, I'm not going to achieve the level that I want?
You know, I think that I'd gone from like not being able to sneeze to every day got progressively better, that it was kind of just like a slow uphill climb, but I was progressing. And I can't say that, I guess just like the opportunities that I had kind of fell in place, because I ended up getting a call asking if I wanted to play with Godiva at Worlds in Lecco. And I was like, sure, Masters Women's, like, perfect. It's like other women have children and it's just my speed. Like, this is exactly where I need to be. And so my next step from that was beach worlds. And for beach, like, it's so kind on your body, just the give of the sand and everything, that it was playing. I think that was in my head, like that was going to be my last hurrah. And then my name kind of got out there. And so I feel like just like I progressively just baby stepped my way back over the years to playing at the highest level. And so were there moments when I was like, I can't do this anymore, or my body is not going to make it? For sure. But then like the desire to play and I guess like the increase in my mental stability and just getting out and playing and having fun just kept me coming back. And at some point, my emphasis was never playing at the highest level again. It kind of just was presented to me, but just playing in general. You know, in Montana, there's not a ton of playing opportunities, but I'll go out and play league and I just giggle the whole entire time I'm on the field because I'm out there running and playing. And it's like, it doesn't really get much better than that for me. Whether or not it's at the highest level or just league, like I just love running around with people and throwing a plastic frisbee through the air.
Z, at what point did you decide that you were going to make it back into the sport of ultimate and make it back at a level that you would be proud of?
I think the day I stopped playing, the day I decided to become pregnant, it was never really a question for me that I was going to try to come back. How far back I would get and would it be, like you said, to a level that was fulfilling for me was an unknown. But I think the support that I got from my teammates, from my husband, was unbelievable. The biggest question for me was how well my child would fit into our lifestyle. And my team completely opened their arms to both of us, and it's really funny to watch a group of 20-somethings who have no experience with kids to all of a sudden have a baby on the sideline. I was the oldest player on my team, male or female, and so a lot of folks this was their first experience having a kid around, you know, for power weekends where we'd spend the whole weekend doing things together as a team. And for me, the doubt came more from how would she fit into our life and the team's atmosphere versus myself getting back physically to where I wanted to be. And the support was unreal, and she's got every one of them wrapped around her finger. And it's been, I have pictures of her reading books with the guys and convincing them to go through dog doors. And, she's passed around from person to person, and, the point ends unexpectedly and they're like, you're on the line. And I just hand her off to whoever's next to me without a worry. That part was awesome. Physically for me, the first season back, I had some doubts because I wasn't where I wanted to be. I had lost a step. I wasn't the fastest on the team anymore. Or one of the fastest, excuse me. And that first season, at the end of it, I had to sit down and ask myself, do I want to work through an off season to try harder than I've ever tried to get into the shape that was going to make me happy with my level of play? And my husband and I talked it over because it was going to be a lot of time dedicated to this. And he had already at this point stopped playing competitively. And I just looked at my life and I couldn't imagine not trying. And so I got in the gym, and it was actually a really great thing for both me and my daughter because I needed me time. And I think that's really important for moms to take, especially when it's, surrounding their health and their physical well-being. So, I got me time doing the thing that I loved, which was getting in shape. And she got time to go play with other kids in the gym daycare. And this was obviously pre-COVID. But yeah, so we both got a little break, every day. And I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself. I just said, I'm going to do whatever I can do to get there. And I ended up, I think, getting in better shape than I've ever been going into 2020. And, I looked at her when the idea of a pro league for us, a pro team in Arizona came up, and I thought, I can't let this go by without trying. She has an amazing group of women in her life, and I wanted her to see us succeed and play at this high level, and to bring the idea of a professional athlete into our home where she grows up with. Her mom was an athlete and her aunties are pro athletes, and to have that be normal for her so that she can see that it's possible, and that it's, I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but like it's a thing, and it's a thing she can do. And every time I would sit there and go, I don't really feel like going through a workout today, or I'm on rep 8 when I'm supposed to be doing 10, that's good enough. It was like, no, I'm older than everyone. I have a kiddo, and I have to make sure that I try my hardest to see what I can do for me and for her. And that really pushed me to reach a level that I was comfortable with. And I would say I got there. She was born in August of 2017, and it was February of 2020 when I felt like I made it. I made it back. I felt like myself, and my teammates were commenting like, oh, you're back. That first season, but now you're back. And it was like they were finally okay to talk about how tough it was. But yeah, the moment that I knew I was coming back to Ultimate was the moment I stopped playing Ultimate, because it's that much of a part of our lives. I couldn't imagine not doing it.
My next question, I'm throwing it out to all of you. It's the same question. What message do you have for any women who are involved in Ultimate and are potentially considering motherhood down the line? Like, what do you know now that you wish you had known at the beginning of your experience?
I think that it's important to know that it's possible. And I think that we have some incredible role models in the professional soccer leagues, the WNBA, and then we can just start looking around at our peers and realize that there are support systems. And I think one of the biggest things for me was realizing that it's okay to ask for help, and to definitely lay out that that you do need help, and that your child, for me as a single mother, it's like, hey, I have a child, and she takes precedence over everything. And so far in all of the teams that I've ever played on, the community has said, like, we will help you. And my daughter is definitely a Frisbee child, and she knows the scene, and even like she'll walk up on the sidelines to people, to other teams, and they're like, whose child is this? And they're like, it doesn't really matter. Like, the community is definitely embraces and has helped me a lot. But the other main thing, aside from like it is possible, that as Lindsey had mentioned, the support system outside of Ultimate and the number of professionals that are available, like if you have discomfort or any sort of pain, like there's never a reason to move through pain or discomfort, and to listen to your body as you recover, and that our bodies heal ourselves if given the time. And if they're not healing themselves, then there are professionals out there that will help you.
Z, same question.
I would say, much like Smitty said, that you're not alone, that the community will embrace you. I can't imagine any of the Ultimate communities that I've been a part of over the last 17 years not embracing a new mom. It can feel like you're a little bit on an island. First you're pregnant and you can't participate, and then you're recovering and you can't participate, and you feel like you're on the sidelines, but a little further removed, and you kind of feel like you're on an island, but you're not, and the community will absolutely embrace you and support you. And that, I feel really strongly that we should be open about the experience of being pregnant and childbirth and what you need. Expressing what you need on the sideline to your teammates, like they'll help you. They'll be there for you. The number of people that have, held my child or handed me things that I needed because I couldn't reach them at the moment because I was pumping on the sideline or whatever it was, they'll be there for you, and you're not an island. And to give yourself the grace to come back when your body is ready, and not compare yourself to other moms, whether it takes you a month, 6 months, or 6 years to come back. Just let your body do what it needs to do, and reach out to those who are knowledgeable that can help you get where you want to be. It can be an amazing experience, and I'm glad that I'm a mom and that I'm still playing, and I'm thrilled that Ultimate is still a part of my life and now a part of my child's life, because she has the most amazing extended family because of it.
Dre, same question.
I think the message that I'd want to make sure folks start this journey off with is that you can have a plan, but you may not follow your plan, and to be okay with that. And try to figure out, I guess, how to be okay with that, because just like your birth plan, that might get thrown out the window. You're going to have a different kind of kid that you can't predict what their personality is, what their needs are. So you may fully intend to go back to Ultimate or do all sorts of different things, but you don't know how motherhood's going to hit you, from what your kid will be like, to how your body will respond, to how you'll mentally respond. And so the plan may need to be to not have a plan and to just roll with whatever experience comes with it. And so having it be okay to not go back to Ultimate, whether right away or ever, or finding a different way to be involved, like coaching or running a professional Ultimate league, or however really motivates you, but just knowing that you can't plan for everything, and so flexibility is key, and you will still do lots of great things even if it's not initially how you thought it would look.
And lastly, a question to all of you: what does it mean to have your daughters see you involved in the Western Ultimate League, a professional league for women and non-binary athletes?
For me, having my daughter see me play and see all of her aunties on the team play, I feel like it brings being a professional athlete really close to home. I'm hoping that by the time she's old enough to play, hopefully, right? But to do any sort of sport, if that's her passion, I'm hoping that by the time she's that age, that professional ultimate has grown and is more mainstream, and it's more like what you see with the women's soccer team and things like that, and it becomes more within reach. And I had grand illusions in high school and college of being a pro pole vaulter and traveling around Europe and getting paid to vault in events. And I had severe back problems that took me out of that game years ago, and I thought it wouldn't ever happen that I'd be able to put professional next to my name in terms of anything athletic. And so to have this opportunity kind of reignited that spark for me, and being able to play pro ultimate brought that hope of being a pro athlete to kind of a realization. And I'm hoping that she'll be able to be proud of not just her mom, but her aunties and all the other players in this league. And 15 years from now, she can say, hey, my mom and my aunties and all of their friends, like, they started this for us. And that's my hope.
Dre?
I think this opportunity is really important for my daughters to see me doing something other than being a mother. To have them see that I am a woman and an athlete or a coach, or I have different parts of me, and so I hope that it inspires them throughout their life to take on different identities that they want to pursue, and also that they understand that I'm a person, not just a mother. Probably take a few years at their current ages before they'll realize that, but eventually they can see that. And in particular, my youngest right now, she's just over a year old. She's basically never been out of our house. So I really look forward to the WEL coming and having her actually come to a sideline, come to a game, come to see what the world looks like, and be able to see how many amazing women are out there doing all sorts of different things, whether it's coaching or being an athlete. But there's hopefully by the time she's involved, a lot of opportunities to be involved in whatever interests her, and she can take on those roles because we've paved the way and built from the ground up to be something that's just normal for her. And unfortunately, she'll probably take it for granted at that point, which I guess is what we're trying to do.
Smitty?
To have Aaliyah see me on the professional level, I think it's important because she also has a chance to see the behind the scenes. And so she, gets hauled to the track with me, and she sees me working out. She understands my discipline. And so she recognizes, I've seen in her own mannerisms, that it's like, oh, if I practice this, or if I keep working at this, then I'll be able to do like whatever trick on the trampoline. And I think it's also incredible that she can, if she needs to stay home with my mom or whoever can watch her for that weekend, that she can watch me on some sort of stream. And she also sees my friends and her aunties running around, and recognizes that if my mom can do it, then I can do that as well.
That's it for this episode of the Western Ultimate League's Open Side. On behalf of my guest, Andrea Duran, Lindsey Doyle, Emily Smith-Wilson, and the production team here at Western Ultimate League, I'm Megan Tormey saying thank you for joining us, and see you next episode on the Open Side.